This is the Sunday Night Bible Forum, and I'm Warren Sprouse. I'm your host and your guide for the next 2 hours as we look at life through a biblical lens. We're going to be spending this time together. We're going to trust that you are going to sit back and relax. If you have things that you'd like to say, things you'd like to discuss, we have a chat room. Right there on the Bible Forum website where you see the video, you click it in there, you can find a chat room. We're also streaming live on Facebook. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis, and in the not too distant future we're going to switch over and just do it on Facebook. We'll have the Ustream videos available after the show is over, as we normally would, cycling through if you check that website. But generally it's going to be Facebook, and that's a cost-cutting issue. Ustream charges money, and as that adds up, it adds up. We've got a whole lot of things to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the United States and Russia. I don't know if you've been paying any attention to the news, but the U.S. and Russia moved closer to open conflict this week in the skies over Syria and Iraq. The United States shot down a Russian-made fighter jet over Syria, and then has just recently shot down an Iranian drone over Iraq. The U.S. and North Korea have moved closer to open conflict as North Korea insists on ramping up her military capacity. Over in Great Britain, we have Brexit, the exit from the European Union. And this week we learned that half of all the skilled workers in Great Britain are threatening to leave. They're going to leave the country. Is that a bad thing? Well, clearly it is. Is it a good thing? Well, yeah. And I'll explain that to you later on. Speaking of Brexit, the EU is getting the picture. It may have a lot to do with our president's recent visit to the NATO meeting. And I'll explain some of that later on in the show, too. How much confidence do you have in the federal law enforcement, the area we call the Federal Bureau of Investigation? A recent FBI report regarding the shooting that took place in Alexandria, Virginia. Remember the guy shot up the baseball field there with the Republican senators and representatives practicing? You're going to get a little shock. The United States college student was released from a North Korean jail a couple of weeks back when President Trump made it clear to North Korea that it was in their best interest to do so. Unbeknownst to us, they were happy to send him home because he'd been in a coma for the best part of a year. They're saying it was botulism. It appears now to be a violence-induced coma. Why? We'll talk about that too. An internationally financed icebreaker operating in the Arctic Circle, gathering data in regard to the growing crisis we now know as global warming, got stuck in the ice and had to cancel the expedition. We'll talk about it. What's the largest environmental risk to the world? No, it's not global warming. That's not my opinion. This is the opinion of people who watch these things. There's a whole issue here that nobody's talking about. Do you know what a two-headed flatworm is? Never heard of them. But apparently there are flatworms on the earth that have two heads. And these flatworms are encouraging scientists that humans could one day grow spare parts. No, it's not far out there. I mean, you listen to how it all evolves. It'll make sense to you as well. You want to live longer? Stay out of Oregon. Oh, and attend church. Yeah. Studies. Reports. Church attendance seems to help people of all sorts live longer. No, not every day, every Sunday, every time the door opens, just once or twice a year. And your life expectancy increases. The federal government is reporting that there have been 464 earthquakes at Yosemite National Park just in the last 13 days. What does that mean? Is there a catastrophe in the works here? We'll look at it. Oh, and the Southern Baptists have a new Bible. The new Bible has at least one glaring error that the translators, the marketers, and other interested parties either chose to ignore or simply don't know. It's a doctrinal error. Oops. And what happens when a man gets a period, a menstrual cycle? What happens to him? Yeah, we'll talk about that too in very guarded ways. Now, there are some of the significant and timely events that occurred this week. Some of the initiatives and some of the issues that made the news, and some that didn't. And we're going to talk about all of them before we go to bed tonight. We appreciate you watching, tuning in to the Bible Forum. Would encourage you to make it a regular event. If you can't be here on Sunday nights from 8 to 10, you can watch it from the website. You can also watch it from the Facebook. I've been posting segments of it as the week unfolds, one a day. And we'd like for you to be involved. To begin tonight, I wanted to share some of the facts, some of the issues that surround this international buffoonery that we now know as the Otto Warmbier issue. Otto Warmbier has completed his journey home, the family statement read. That was several weeks ago. They learned that he was unable to speak, unable to see, unable to react to verbal commands. His doctors, according to ABC News, said that Warmbier had multiple injuries after his time in North Korea. Doctors from the University of Cincinnati Medical Center said last week that Warmbier, who's 22 years of age, was suffering from injuries related to cardiopulmonary arrest and was in a state of unresponsive wakefulness. Unresponsive wakefulness. The poor guy's awake. He just can't function. He doesn't see, he doesn't hear, he doesn't know what's going on. North Korean officials returned this man in a coma after he'd been there for 15 months, 17 months, most of which was spent in the coma. Ostensibly because the Trump administration asked for him. That's pretty much all they had to do, was just ask for him, and they sent him home. The truth here, I believe, is that the North Koreans wanted to get rid of him before he actually died. Their version of the story behind Otto's condition doesn't really add up on any level. The official story is that Warmbier had stolen a propaganda poster in a Pyongyang hotel library on orders from the Friendship United Methodist Church of Wyoming, Ohio. You didn't know that because they wouldn't let you know that. Not the Koreans, our government. The idea was that this was supposed to be a trophy, and if he brought this back, the church would give him $10,000. The little problem with that, besides the fact that it's just not true, is that Otto was Jewish. The family chose to keep his Jewishness concealed while officials tried to negotiate his release. Their lawyer explained that the family chose not to share the information while he was in captivity because they didn't want to embarrass North Korea by explaining that he was actually Jewish and he wouldn't have been affiliated with any church. But then the Obama administration stepped in to keep the family out of the picture, while they, the administration, ostensibly worked for the boy's release. The truth, again, the Obama administration did not work for his release. They let him rot in a North Korean system rather than upset a maniacal North Korean dictator who is practicing in order to attack the United States with missiles or just simply to threaten us to death. What happened to this boy? Well, if you've been paying attention at all, you've seen the video. He clearly was seen as an animated young man arguing his case in court, at least in the beginning. Some weeks later, he has to be helped into the courtroom, where he pleads for his release in a tremendously emotional outburst. After 1 hour of this trial, he is judged guilty and he's sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. The reality here is that North Korea saw an opportunity to force Obama to give them whatever it is they wanted in return for Otto's release. The U.S. reality, the Obama administration believed this young man was expendable in light of the larger picture. It does not appear the Obama administration stayed on top of the case. They didn't know he was in a hospital in this kind of condition. They didn't know that for over a year. And if they did, they're not talking. How is it there was not a steady drumbeat at home to keep this in front of the American people? Well, it just wasn't politically expedient. The official story from North Korea is that Otto suffered from botulism. Botulism is a rare infection caused by bacteria in food, water, or soil that our body is unable to either process or fight off. A healthy human body does not routinely get botulism. Otto was healthy. Doctors here indicated no trace of botulism in his body. More likely, he was brutalized in some way, perhaps accidentally damaged in a more severe way than planned. The pictures of him being led to trial show 2 guards holding him upright while he tried to walk. No doubt his condition deteriorated after that. His American doctors said he had suffered a significant degree of brain damage. His father said the Obama administration should have done more, or at least let him, the father, do more to secure his son's release. Instead, the administration advised him and his wife to keep a low profile. Mr. Warmbier said, "We did so without resolve. We were advised that it was important that you don't upset the North Koreans." He said, "Earlier this year, Cindy and I decided the time for strategic patience was over. And so we made a few media appearances. We traveled to Washington. We went public with an interview on Tucker Carlson's show, and then did a couple of written pieces, and very, very quickly we have Otto home." How about that? A reporter noticing Warmbier's attitude towards the Obama administration said, quote, "You thanked President Trump, and you also said that the past administration didn't do enough. So do you feel like then President Obama should have been doing more to help?" Mr. Warmbier said, "I think the results speak for themselves." Several times in that interview, Mr. Warmbier went out of his way to directly credit President Trump as well as the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, with the release of his son. The overarching lesson here is clear. Don't let your children travel the world unless there's a government at home willing to protect them.